Good evening, Draftaholics, and welcome to Draft Punks. I'm Sam.
And I'm Adrian, and this is your pre-release and draft guide for Bloomburrow.
Gone are the days of Punisher mechanics and cruel choices. Bloomburrow is all about that spirit of giving. The new gift mechanic allows you to give your opponents a generous gift in exchange for a little more juice on your spells.
For example, Consumed by Greed is a slightly overcosted edict spell, but if you let your opponent draw a card first, it also lets you bring back one of your creatures from the graveyard. Likewise, Parting Gust is a 2-mana flicker spell, but if you give your opponent a tapped 1/1 fish token, it can be used to permanently exile a creature instead. Bloomburrow is mostly about gifting cards or fish, but there are a few that gift food or treasure tokens.
A few notes about playing with gift cards. You choose whether to promise the gift as you cast the spell as an additional cost. However, the opponent only gets their gift if the spell actually resolves, so those nasty control players don't get any presents for free. If the gift spell is an instant or sorcery, the opponent gets their gift before the rest of the spell's effects. If it's a permanent, they get the gift as an enters the battlefield trigger.
Oh, and if you're playing a multiplayer format, you don't have to give the gift to the same opponent that you're hitting with the rest of the spell. So much for this mechanic not being cruel.
I think what we all really want out of our cute little animal set is regular reminders that these bunnies are, well, you know, doing what bunnies are famous for.
Offspring is an additional cost attached to creature spells which will create an additional copy of that creature when it enters the battlefield, but a baby version, a 1/1. Offspring are exact genetic copies of their parents, so I guess they're actually twins? They have the exact same name, types, mana value, and so on, everything except power and toughness.
So while our friend the Intrepid Rabbit is a fairly boring 3-mana 3/2 with a pump ability, if you pay its offspring cost, you get a 3/2, a 1/1, and 2 pumps for 4 mana. Or if you're into the spell slinging life, try a Coruscation Mage, which can give you double the pings every time you play an instant or sorcery.
If you are playing your pre-release, keep an eye out for printed Offspring tokens corresponding to each creature with Offspring. They come with a handy little reminder that these are tokens with a mana value, which can be easy to forget.
Expend is a new term that tracks how much mana you've used to cast spells in a turn. Except for one rare, all cards in Bloomburrow look for when you expend 4, meaning spend your 4th mana on spells this turn.
Expend is solely in red and green in Bloomburrow and often quite aggressive. For example, check out Baker's Bane Duo, a 2-mana 2/2 that enters with a food and becomes a 3/3 whenever you spend that 4th mana in a turn. When this duo breaks bad, you get Roughshod Duo, a 3-mana 3/2 that lets you spread some trampling damage around every time you expend 4.
There's a couple of tricky aspects to Expend. Firstly, it only tracks mana spent on spells, so if you pay 2 mana to crack a food and then cast a 2-drop, that will not count as expending 4. Secondly, it looks for the 4th mana you've spent in a turn, not just after you play the card that cares about expending. For example, once you've played Junkblade Bruiser, you've already spent 5 mana, so any further spells won't expend 4. However, Expend does track additional costs, so paying for Offspring costs does count towards Expend.
But if you want to get tricky with it, you can hit that magic number 4 at instant speed. So go ahead and play that 2-drop pre-combat so that your mid-combat trick turns on your Expend creatures unexpectedly. It also doesn't matter if your spells get counted. Expend just cares that you spent the mana.
Forage is a new keyword action that lets you sacrifice a food or exile 3 cards from your graveyard for some effect. Now, those things might feel unrelated until you remember that in the set full of trash pandas, eating food and eating from the garbage bin are basically the same thing.
For example, when Treetop Sentries enters, your Giant Spider can get upgraded to a can-tripping Giant Spider if you sacrifice a food or exile 3 cards from your graveyard. At uncommon, Feed the Cycle looks like plain old murder unless you can forage and reduce it down to only 2 mana.
Forage is found entirely in black and green in Bloomburrow, and there are some serious shenanigans you can get up to with non-token foods. For example, you could play Heaped Harvest to ramp a land into play, then sacrifice it to Curious Forager's Forage ability, get another land, then return the harvest back to your hand. And you can bet we'll be doing that in our drafts.
One of the fun parts about Forage is that it competes with fan-favorite returning mechanic, Threshold. Boomers like Sam will remember Threshold's last appearance in a standard set in Odyssey Block, 23 years ago.
Oh god.
Threshold is beautifully simple. Its effects turn on when you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. It does not track types or anything like that, just number of cards.
Threshold is based in blue-black in Bloomburrow, for example, on Shoreline Looter, an unblockable saboteur who gives you a loot whenever you deal combat damage with it, until you've discarded enough cards to get up to Threshold, at which point it just straight up draws you a card. In fact, many Threshold cards come with a built-in way to enable them, such as Mind Whisker, who lets you surveil 1 on your upkeep to get to 7 faster.
Valiant is Bloomburrow's keyword in red-white, and is a new twist on Heroic. Valiant is a keyword ability that triggers whenever the creature becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time each turn.
For example, Nettle Guard looks like a mopey 2-mana 3-1, but if you point a combat trick at it, it will get that extra toughness to survive in combat. Heartfire Hero is even more threatening, growing permanently when first targeted each turn, and doming the opponent equal to its power when it dies.
Classes are back! We've met these before in AFR, but drafters prefer to put that set in a dark, forgotten corner of our memories. There are 2 classes in each colour in Bloomburrow, 1 uncommon and 1 rare.
For a quick refresh, classes are enchantments that come in on their first level. You can pay a mana cost at sorcery speed to advance them to the next level to gain its effects as well. Each new ability gets added, it does not replace the earlier abilities, and they generally synergize quite well.
Pawprint is the last new mechanic, and only shows up on the Mythic Rare season cycle for those of you who will open better than me at the Bloomburrow pre-release. These are all modal spells that let you choose 5 Pawprints worth of modes, including the same mode multiple times.
For example, Season of Weaving's modes are 1 Pawprint to draw a card, 2 to clone a creature or artifact of yours, or 3 to bounce each non-land, non-token permanent. So you could just pay the first mode 5 times and draw 5 cards. You could pay the second mode once to clone your best creature as a token, plus the third mode to then bounce everything else. Or you can draw 3 cards and clone your best creature, bonus points if it's a Muldrifter, and so on. World's your oyster. These are all stupid busted cards, so have fun with the maths right before you kill your opponent.
The play booster contents for Bloomburrow is thankfully quite simple after a few chaotic sets recently. Each booster has 6 to 7 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare or mythic rare, 1 wildcard of any rarity, and 1 foil of any rarity. The only extra cards are the special guests, which replace a common in 3 out of every 200 boosters. These are all powerful cards from Magic's past with a fancy new treatment. Some are powerful in limited, while some are nice to look at.
There is one other fun part for paper players like me who love collecting the full art lands. For each full art basic land in Bloomburrow, there are 4 different seasonal variations, which show up with different frequency. Spring 40%, summer 30%, autumn 20%, winter 10%. Every pack has a full art land, so a draft pot of 8 people should have, on average, around 10 spring, 7 summer, 5 autumn, and 2 winter. So enjoy being stupid like me and taking those precious winter basics over good playables.
Bloomburrow is a tribal set, which wizards keep trying to get us to call typal, meaning creature types matter. Each colour pair in Bloomburrow cares about a different creature type, with a different mechanical theme.
As usual, each colour pair gets a gold signpost uncommon to help point us in the right direction, but this time we also get a cycle of hybrid commons in each pair. Now remember, the hybrid cards can go in any deck of their colours, but we suspect they'll probably be most at home in their true colour pair.
Blue-white features British girls helping guys. Birds helping non-birds. This is led by Plume Creed Mentor, who lets your flyers give +1/+1 counters to ground pounders when they enter. Hybrid common Seed Pod Squire is a baby version of this, giving a one-shot boost to a grounded creature.
Now we love the look of Plume Creed Escort in this archetype, as a way to trigger these effects at instant speed, in addition to just being a nasty anti-removal trick. Likewise, Night Fisher is a great way to ensure that your birds come with plenty of ground-bound fish to play with.
Blue-black is, and has always been, the home of rats who love filling their graveyard. Once you've got that bin to the magical 7 mark, your gold uncommon Tidecaller Mentor becomes the most savage Man-O-War you've ever seen. Hybrid common Mind Drill Assailant can help you get there in a long game and becomes a 5/5 once you're there.
If you're in a Threshold deck, try to pick up cards that fill the graveyard a bit faster via things like Surveil or Self-Mill, such as with Lightshell Duo and Daggerfang Duo. And if you're in the graveyard business already, this set has plenty more action for you, including the crazy powerful uncommons Eddy Merc Crab and Huskburster Swarm, plus plenty more ways to bring back creatures or spells from the graveyard to play a grindy game.
The Lizards of Black-Red love nothing more than their opponents bleeding, and will pay you handsomely for your opponents losing life. Fireglass Mentor gives you some extra cards to play with if you can damage your opponent each turn, while Cindering Cutthroat comes in as a 3-mana 4/3 with potential menace if you can get a hit in with your 2-drop.
Now remember, turning on what the Ravnikins call Spectacle does not need combat damage. Any form of life loss or direct damage will do. So if you can lead on Steampath Charger, you will get your Spectacle effect regardless of blocks, while Kindle Spark just takes all of the guesswork out of things. Likewise, black life loss effects such as on Agate Blade Assassin and Glide Dive Duo can cause quite a spectacle.
The red-green raccoons are here to teach you a thing or two about mana efficiency to make sure you expend 4 every turn. Wondertail Mentor is perfect as it ramps you straight to 4 mana on turn 3, and then grows permanently each time you expend 4. Junkblade Cruiser is a chunky lad that will trigger all of your Expend 4 effects while getting nice and swole himself.
Building around Expend 4 can mean a little bit more than just stuffing your deck with more 4-drops than commanders in a standard set. Firstly, get as many 2-drops as you can, and try to limit your 3-drops. It will always be easy to double spell with 2-drops, but a hand of 3s can get a little bit awkward. But there's an even better trick: Offspring. For example, Bushy Bodyguard can be a 2-drop when you need to combine with another 2, or it can spend 4 mana all by itself by paying its Offspring cost.
Rabbits are known for one thing: family, which means more rabbits, and more, and more. All this is good news for Burrowguard Mentor, who promises to be a large tramply bunny for only 2 mana. Grandpa Rabbit's best friend is Writhing Chrysalis at Home, Head of the Homestead, a 5-drop that provides 3 bodies in 1 card.
Offspring provides plenty of ways to get multiple bodies out of a single card, but there are a few, like Hop To It, that really span the board. Green-White has a couple of cards that pay you off just for having a token around, like Seasoned Warren Guard or Druid the Spade. But honestly, you're probably just better off killing your opponent with Warren Elder or Rabbit Response.
White-Black is about 2 things: gaining or losing life in a turn, and
the Batman.
Remember when we said that Bloomburrow wasn't about Punisher mechanics? Okay, well maybe nobody told the Batman. Starseer Mentor gives your opponent a choice at the end of every turn if you've been able to gain or lose life. Sack a non-land permanent or lose 3 life. And that life is precious while you're beating down with a 3-power flyer. Hybrid common Moonrise Cleric is a nice simple enabler giving you free life gain every time it attacks.
There are only a few ways you can gain or lose life every turn in Black-White, so make sure you've got your sonar turned on for Agate Blade Assassin or Life Creed Duo. These will be your most reliable ways to make ssure you can get the most out of your Thoughtstalker Warlock or Starlit Soothsayer.
Black-Green is the home of a certain popular furry little creature type and is built around foraging, so make sure you've got plenty of food or things in the graveyard squirreled away. Vine Reap Mentor will set you up nicely, potentially giving you 2 food and an undercosted body, perfect for Corpseberry Cultivator to munch on every turn and grow nice and fat.
The Corpseberry Cultivator is the only card below rare that pays you off for foraging in general, and is also the only one that can forage multiple times, so is likely quite important for this archetype. However, there are a few other cards clearly designed for black-green, such as Bonecase Observer, who can draw you a card whenever you exile cards from your graveyard for foraging, and Honoured Dray Leader, the Lord of Squirrels and Food.
Blue-Green Frogs is the home of Value Town in Bloomburrow, built around bouncing around the lily pads for maximum value. Those of you who have been around the draft punks a while know that there is little we enjoy more than some self-interactive durdling, so this archetype is totally up our alley. Lily Splash Mentor will make a splash by being able to re-trigger your ETB effects for just 3 mana, and Pawn Prophet seems like the perfect fodder to keep bouncing in and out.
This archetype will need two halves, things that bounce or flicker your own permanents, like Runaway Together or Sky Skipper Duo, and things that give you value when they enter, like Splash Flasher, Clifftop Lookout, or did we mention Pawn Prophet?
If you're a fan of Prowess, this set will be utter madness for you. Any fans of Goblin Electromancer would be salivating at the thought of adding Prowess to the little guy. So get a look at Stormcatch Mentor. And if that's not enough, how about a hybrid mana Spellgorger weird in the form of Tempest Angler?
The most important things to remember when building these Spellslinger decks is you want your spells to be cheap and you want plenty that draw cards. So while they might look meek, keep an eye out for Might of the Meek, Splash Portal, and Playful Shove. Meanwhile, the tension in these decks has always been having creature threats plus non-creature spells to power them. So you'd better get excited for Otterball Antics, which manages to combine the two in one.
Everybody knows mice are best known for their valor, so the red-white Valiant archetype is here to demonstrate that. Aggro is the name of the game with Valiant, so a hasty 3-2 for 3 in Seedglaive Mentor that grows as the game goes on sounds like just what Stuart Little ordered. Veteran Guardmouse might look a little clunky, but a big first striker is almost impossible to tangle with in combat.
Of course, in your Valiant deck, ways to target your creatures is going to be the name of the game, but you have to be careful to not just load up on too many combat tricks. Bravekin Duo and Raccoon Rallier will be useful ways to have enough creatures and enough targeting. If it is instants and sorceries you want, there are plenty of very strong options across both colours, including a punch spell in Rabid Gnaw and a double targeting spell in Mabel's Metal.
After a couple of sets where we have been blessed with amazing fixing for some real multicolour shenanigans, Bloomburrow is taking us back to some more classic limited. The only lands below rare that can provide fixing are Uncharted Haven and Hidden Grotto.
Green has a few additional options in Manadork 3-Tree Rootweaver and Forage combo piece Heaped Harvest, but that's it. So, at least early in the format, you would probably be well advised to find the open 2-colour archetype for your seat and settle in to a nice safe 2-colour deck. Unless you're us, in which case we'll be looping Heaped Harvests for questionable reasons from week 1. So, whether you're here for little animals holding giant swords, unlikely cute little team-ups, or filling your garbage bin with dead rats, Bloomburrow has something for you. Be sure to find a Bloomburrow pre-release near you, and if you'd like to join us for some drafts, we'll have our first Bloomburrow draft video out the day the set is live on Arena, so we would love to have you subscribe to join us.
If you are ready for a whole set of bounce and drain and splash and pain with the draft bunks, all you need to do is remember what to call a werewolf on YouTube.
It's a like and subscribe.
The only lands below rare that can provide fixing are Unchunky Haven, you fucking idiots. If you are ready for a whole set of bounce and drain and splash and chuck, you fucking dickhead.
We got him. Of course, in your Valiant deck, ways to target your creatures is going to be the name of the game, but you have to be careful to not just load up on too many chunk bat tricks.